Okay, so for the bottom of turn 3, what is effectively my turn 2, the game is already pretty well out of hand for me. Um, I managed to do 1 wound on the Wraith Lord with 2 heavy weapons from my Warwalker squad. I'm going to go ahead and say it again. They're already my unit of the match. The Farseer squad could not manage to inflict a single. Well, they inflicted wounds on the Exarch. He just passed every single armor save he had to take.
4 of them.
4 of them, yes. And so I am locked in combat. I happily didn't get chased down this turn, which is new and exciting.
Who knows what next turn will bring?
Who knows? The Falcon shot at the Avatar, but missed with everything it had because it's only ballistic skill 3. And God, this game is so disheartening. I managed to light up the Warp Spider Exarch with 7 wounds from the Vipers,
Yes.
and he passed all 7 armor saves,
With
partially thanks to fortune, though Clay did pass 5 of them to begin with. And yeah, my Swooping Hawks failed their difficult terrain test, so they couldn't make it into this little swampy area because instead of rolling a 3 or more, I rolled a 2. And Clay rolled all except for 1 save with them when I shot at them.
2 saves. No, I
Oh, you lost 2 guys?
Yeah, I only made 1 save.
You made 1 save, okay. So yeah, this has been a bad game. I'm going to say it with this army list. I can't ever play aggressive because I can't recover if I fumble on the aggressive. If I play defensive, I think I'll have a fine chance. But this is a very valuable lesson to learn now rather than in the tournament.
All right. We're going into the top of turn 1. Dan has no army deployed. This is mine. I've got a nice Doom Fort going on here. It's spearhead deployment. The primary objective is table quarter control. Secondary is objectives, where we have 5 as before, 1 in each quarter and 1 in the center. And the tertiary objective is kill points. Being that Dan is playing a reserves army now, it looks like the first turn or so is going to fly by very quickly. I moved my force forward more. I actually failed my psychic test for fortune, and my warp spider is deep struck into the exact center point of the map on top of the objective that is also difficult terrain. Thankfully, they made all their difficult terrain, or their dangerous terrain tests for deep striking in there. Other than that, I'm just waiting for Dan to come onto the table.
So for my bottom of turn 2, I got in a lot of my units, everything except for the Falcon and the Wave Serpent with Guardians, and I really decided to go aggressive. This is a table quarter game, so I figured go big or go home. I moved on with both my jet bike squads. I had the Guardians unload on a Dire Avenger squad with shooting, and I managed to kill 1 Dire Avenger with shooting, and then I charged. Oh, I killed 2 with shooting. 2 with shooting. And then I charged in there and killed 3, but they also killed 3 Guardian jet bikes. So I really kind of got. I did not get the good end of that one. Clay should be very proud of his Dire Avengers. Then I had my Shining Spears go after the Avatar. They opened up on him shooting with their laser lances. All of that shooting, I only managed to do 1 wound, which he saved, and followed up with charging the Avatar, and he killed more than half my unit, and I did a massive 1 wound on him. So that really blew up in my face. Pretty much that was the bulk of my turn. The only good thing I had was the Warwalkers came on in this far corner here. They walked on, blew up the Night Spinner. It's gone. no big thing. It was huge for me just to get that thing out of the way, but you know, that was my one highlight. And the Swooping Hawks came in their first chance, actually, surprisingly. Um, they managed to hit the Guardians with their blast and did nothing because Clay made all his saves.
Oh, yeah.
And then they fired at them with their guns, and they managed to kill what, two guys?
Two guys.
Yeah, two guys. So just not a very impressive round for me. And because I was so aggressive, I don't know if I can recover from it. I'm going to go ahead now and say my Warwalkers are the unit of the match for me.
Top of turn 3, the Empire strikes back. My avatar, with the help of the Wraithguard squad that was nearby, wiped out his Shining Spears and Autarch in close combat. My Guardians thinned out the Swooping Hawk swarm with, well, it's not really a swarm, it's really a small squad, with Shuriken and Les fire. And my Exarch, my Dire Avenger Exarch, still holds out against the Guardian Jetbike squad and Farseer. It's just down to him, but he stayed in combat after losing his buddies. Meanwhile, my Warp Spiders jumped out to shoot the Viper and promptly forgot what they were doing, so they jumped back into cover without firing. And now we are on to the bottom of turn 3.
So for the bottom of turn 3, what is effectively my turn 2, the game is already pretty well out of hand for me. I managed to do 1 wound on the Wraithlord with 2 heavy weapons from my Warwalker squad. I'm going to go ahead and say it again. They're already my unit of the match. The Farseer squad could not manage to inflict a single... Well, they inflicted wounds on the Exarch. He just passed every single armor save he had to take.
4 of them.
4 of them, yes. And so I am locked in combat. I happily didn't get chased down this turn, which is new and exciting.
Who knows what next turn will bring?
Who knows? The Falcon shot at the Avatar, but missed with everything it had because it's only ballistic skill 3. And God, this game is so disheartening. I managed to light up the Warp Spider Exarch with 7 wounds from the Vipers,
Yes.
and he passed all 7 armor saves,
With
partially thanks to fortune, though Clay did pass 5 of them to begin with. And yeah, my Swooping Hawks failed their difficult terrain test, so they couldn't make it into this little swampy area because instead of rolling a 3 or more, I rolled a 2. And Clay rolled all except for 1 save with them when I shot at them.
2 saves. No, I
Oh, you lost 2 guys?
Yeah, I only made 1 save.
You made 1 save, okay. So yeah, this has been a bad game. I'm going to say it, with this army list, I can't ever play aggressive because I can't recover if I fumble on the aggressive. If I play defensive, I think I'll have a fine chance. But this is a very valuable lesson to learn now rather than in the tournament.
The battle continues. He finally downed my my Dire Avenger Exarch in combat with the jet bikes, but my Avatar made it in, and they still won combat, but they remain in combat. My Warp Spider Exarch jumped back in, finally remembered to fire his guns, but failed to do anything to the Vipers. And meanwhile, I made it so one of the Warwalkers cannot shoot again. My Guardians, combined with the Sword Wraithlord, finished off the Swooping Hawks, and we move on to the bottom of turn 4.
Okay, I continue to be able to do nothing. My Falcon only hit once against the Wraithlord standing in the open, failed to wound, and then my missile launchers fired at it, and I managed 1 wound out of that bunch. Then the tanks on the other end just moved because it couldn't shoot. The Vipers opened up again on the Warp Spider Exarch. I hit him 3 times out of 9 shots, wounded 3 times, and he managed all his saves. Again, he took 1 wound, but Fortune got rid of it because he made his armor save. The combat with the Avatar ended in a draw because I couldn't even bother to hit the Avatar, and I managed to make the save against the 1 wound he did cause. And that's
top of turn 5. My Wraith Guard continued to march around the map on a mission of area denial. Managed to tag the Wave Serpent again with a couple Wraith Cannons, make it so it can't shoot. My Warp Spider Exarch continues to hound the Vipers, blew one of them up. My Avatar actually took a wound and failed to inflict any wounds on or failed to make any unsaved wounds against the Farseer, so it lost combat by 1, but it's still in there.
I've pretty much come to the conclusion that this game cannot be over quick enough at this point. I zoomed my Wave Serpent around. I lost a few more jet bike guys in combat with the Avatar. I took a wound. I did nothing to him, so he's still sitting there at 2 wounds. My Warwalkers continue to be the best unit I have on the field, as they, surprising Clay, charged into the Guardians and managed to do 4 wounds, and the unit broke and was chased down. Even if they hadn't been chased down, they hopefully would have fled off the table anyway. My Falcon continues to not be able to hit anything, and even when it does hit, it can't wound, because that's what happens when you're depending on something that's ballistic skill 3 for your armor's anti-tank.
Really, that's really a weakness.
And that's pretty much it. I did finally kill off the Warp Spider Exarch with my Vipers. It took both of them zooming in and firing everything they had, and I still barely did it. But
it's the end of the top of turn 6. I finally finished off the jet bike / Farseer combination there with the Avatar. As my Wraith Guard finally moved to help, I wiped out the Viper squad with my other unit of Wraith Guard, and my Wraith Lord with the sword ended up getting into combat with the Warwalkers, killed 1, survived the return attacks, and that is perhaps my last turn. We'll find out at the end of Dan's.
The bottom of turn 6, and all I did was move a Wave Serpent. My my Falcon actually managed to hit 2 times with its pulse laser, and then proceeded to do nothing because I could not roll above a freaking 3 to wound.
Yes.
I lost another Warwalker in combat, and that's it.
Okay.
Do you want to
Yeah,
roll?
sure. And the game is over.
For this game, we did figure it out. Clay won. It came all the way down to the tertiary objective, which was that's probably,
Kill points.
Yeah, kill points. It was really the closest match we've had because it came down to the tertiary objective. Actually, 1 dice roll could have swung it to a primary objective win for you.
Yeah, that's true.
Because Clay had his Wraith Guard squad split right along 2 quarters, and we rolled to see which side they were in, because they were really pretty much evenly split.
Yeah.
So he rolled the farther side, so he had 2 quarters, I had 2 quarters. Had he rolled this one, you would have had
I would have had
2 quarters, and I
you
would have had 1.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, 1 die roll literally made the difference in the primary.
Between first to third.
Yeah.
Because none of us paid attention to objectives this time. Well, I did it first, and then I got stupid. I charged my Guardians out to face your Warwalkers, and I don't really know what I was doing with my Wraith Guard this game. I was just moving them around because there was nothing really that they could go after, and you obviously weren't.
I was,
pursuing
yeah,
them.
because I could have, I had a
Nothing you could
Wave
do.
Serpent full of a scoring unit right here, and I could have moved them right there at the end to take an objective, and it didn't even occur to me.
Yeah.
So I just went right past the second objective in the game. That's one thing I've noticed about these is you start playing with one objective in mind in particular, and if you're not playing first and then second, you're hoping that you can come back at the end of the game.
And as most of our games show, if we're playing on one objective like we do when we do the standard missions, most of our games are ties. So it definitely comes down to secondaries a lot in this, and even as we saw, the tertiaries. All in all, it was a closer game than you may have thought it was.
I actually don't think it was a close game. I think I was helped out by the specific objective.
Yeah.
That coddled me to some degree because I came out aggressive and I wanted to see what this army could do if I really just threw them right into it, and I mean they just rebounded with no damage. They got totally stopped, punched in the face when they were running in on the charge, and it was embarrassingly bad. Probably the only thing that kept it from being a complete and total rout was that the Avatar got stuck in combat with two.
Yeah, for like 3 turns.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, you've got your Shining Spears and Octark as really they're more of a troubleshooting unit than anything else.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the end, the jet bikes they really can't get mired down in close combat because. I mean, you had great success in the first game, but I think that was more an aberration than anything else. Taking down the Wraith Guard and the Wraith Lords in close combat. But beyond that, they've just been they're a tar pit unit.
Well, they're tough against you because you have so much toughness 6.
Yeah.
I've actually had a much easier time using them against toughness 3 and 4.
Yeah.
Against 3 and 4, they tend to wipe units out right away. But when you're facing a lot of toughness 6, even with that many attacks, I mean, if you just roll 3s to wound, you paid 300 points for a unit and you just did nothing.
Yeah.
And then every subsequent turn, they are really brutalized. For their cost, I can't imagine that in the future they won't simply have those weapons all the time. I mean, just getting it on the charge, considering their point cost is, and they're 35 points a pop.
Yeah.
It's just not enough with them under the current rules because you can't hop combat to combat and avoid shooting. And
yeah, but at the same time, they weren't really shot at. I mean, they were hit by the Night Spinner in the previous game.
Yeah, no, in this game they weren't shot at, but I mean overall.
You're right, no more like against Grey Knights.
Yeah.
They'd get shot to pieces. Because you wouldn't want to charge, you'd die if you charged.
Yeah, if even, there's just some codexes were obviously not really hyper balanced against. We just don't have counters for some of the units in the more modern codexes, but overall I think playing the objectives rather than the opponent's codex helps out a lot. And in this I was just playing table quarters the whole time. And I started off thinking I could cripple Clay's flank, and he just I bounced right off, and after that it became a game of okay, oh crap. Let's see if I can survive this and force something down to the next level. And it is kind of disappointing to me that
they can't hear it.
They can't hear us.
No.
It is disappointing to me that I forgot about the objectives being the second option.
Yeah, that's something that I would do.
Because because had I remembered, I would have scooted the Wave Serpent there so that if the game happened to end, I would have had a chance at winning on the secondary objective and kind of snaking out a win. I mean, that's an option I had right there in front of me, and because I just took my eye off the prize at the end of the game, that cost me that.
And you'd like to think that in a tournament you'd be more mindful of the other victory conditions, but really,
if we're not in practice,
it's difficult.
And the other thing I said early on was that in one of the turn summations is that it was really important to learn here practicing just how poor my army could be
Yeah.
when it gets that alpha strike and goes right for the throat against a high toughness army.
Yeah.
It teaches me a lesson when it comes to things like Tyranids. If I happen to face a Tyranid army that has a lot of toughness 6,
You're gonna have to whittle them down.
yeah, I can't move in there first and think I'm going to take out a Turbogon because I'll probably do maybe 2 wounds and then that's it. I'll have to stay back and whittle them down and then try and win on area quarters. So
Yeah.
it's going to be frustrating, I think, for my opponents dealing with an enemy who essentially just won't engage, because that's going to be my ploy most games.
It may be frustrating, but I have a feeling that judging from how armies have been the last couple of years, you're going to see similar armies. Like I've told you before, there are multiple Space Marine bike armies
Yep.
that were in the tournament, which, I mean, I'm not used to dealing with, but they function similarly. It was even worse, actually, because they had the attack bikes where they'd split them up, and
Yeah.
they'd each be a scoring unit, but you'd have them individually, and they've got 2-up armor saves, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 of armor saves.
So they can be a real pain in the ass on their own. So you'll see similar armies, but against an army like that, you'll do very well, because you're going to have better local firepower concentration than them.
Once again, the ballistic skill 3 on the Falcon, this is something that I really hope changes in the future. Primarily, either that or drop its points down to like 70 points, or even cheaper, because a ballistic skill 3 main battle tank, when that's...
It doesn't have armor value 14, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I mean, just the fact that it can't hit anything, I feel like everything is priced for when our psychic powers are used. Like, it's priced as if guide is always on it, but...
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, you could make a comparison to well, what's the ballistic skill on the Devilfish? Is Tau 3 or 4 primarily?
Well, they're primarily 3, but their Hammerhead, I believe, is 4.
Or Hammerhead, rather, not Devilfish.
Yeah, I think the Hammerhead is 4.
Yeah, alright. So if you look at, say, the IG, the Layman Rust, that's ballistic skill 3, but at the same time, it's got a template main gun, or a blast template main gun, so you can compensate in 5th edition rules for having a lower ballistic skill.
Yeah, and it was like when the Fire Prism, when they redid it in 4th, they had to bump it to ballistic skill 4 because it was just atrocious.
Yeah.
At ballistic skill 3. And in 5th with the template that really shines now.
There's no reason. Well, honestly, there's no reason, but the Fire Prism is definitely a stronger main battle tank than the Falcon.
Yeah.
The Falcon's use is you can throw 5 Dire Avengers in it and have it as a scoring unit, or as any sort of transport. But as a main battle tank, it seems to suffer.
Yeah, and that's. The thing that kills me is it's described in the book as being the main battle tank, and it lacks because it doesn't have the aerial assault rule, which if it did, it could move 12 inches and fire everything.
Yeah.
And still ballistic skill 3, that's awful, but it really needs some type of immediate beefing to be competitive right now.
We'll find out what happens in next edition, which is coming in a little more than a month now.
Yeah.
So as far as unit performance, you were saying, what would your unit of the match be?
Oh, easily the Warwalkers.
Yeah.
Because they took out the Night Spinner, which, prevented it from being a thorn in my side, even though I don't think it really would have had anything to fire at other than like the Vipers all game.
No, it wouldn't have really.
So, I mean, maybe I would. I think had I played the other units more defensively, that would have been a much bigger move.
Definitely.
Than how I actually played it. I made the right choice with the Warwalkers and the wrong choice with pretty much everything else.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. You also goaded my Guardians, as I was saying, into leaving their objective and charge forward and shoot you with shuriken catapults, which, as I have learned in previous games, is pretty much a death sentence. If I'm in range to fire shuriken catapults, I'm going to be charged and I'm not going to be able to hurt you.
Yeah, those Warwalkers getting in on the charge, that was big because even though I got you know, I had two of my guys eventually killed by the Wraith Lord. That was the difference in that table quarter.
It was.
Had those Guardians still been there, even at half, at just over half strength.
That's 100. Well, yeah, scoring in the rules, scoring units are always worth their full
Full
VPs.
VPs, no matter how much they have. So yeah,
so that would have been another 100 points on there, and
I mean that swings that table quarter. So that move essentially saved me the first.
And that would have gotten me second objective too, because I was on the second.
On
I was on the objective for the whole game until I moved forward to kill myself. I would say my unit of the game. It's tough to say because there was a whole lot of just moving around and just sitting there for my units. But the Dire Avengers definitely held their ground against the jet bikes for a number of turns. The Exarch especially, who managed to just make a few saves every turn for 2 turns, and that was enough.
How can you not choose the Warp Spiders?
How
can you not choose the Warp Spiders?
The Vipers didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But yes, the Viper or the Warp Spiders, the Exarch at least, was a complete badass.
Well, if I still had the Vipers there, and this unit was on the line, it wouldn't have mattered which way you roll.
Not necessarily, because I would have won this I would have won this table quarter regardless if I was over here, because that's 396 points.
Right, but if I could have had a unit in both quarters, you would have won only one of them, and I still would have gotten the other.
That's true.
I wouldn't have had an empty table quarter.
That's true.
So I mean.
So that would have made a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. That and the fact that God, he was I couldn't. I shot everything at him. I threw Tupperware.
Well, honestly, it's one of those cases where if I had fired my guns in that first turn when I jumped in, when I had the rest of the squad, I would have killed the Vipers and it would have been a problem.
Yeah.
But then we spent the next few turns playing unload on each other. Yeah.
Here I'm like England during World War II. Just, you know, everything I can I'm throwing over, and it's just not working. I'm slowly being depleted.
Yeah.
My whole unit. Overall, I think that being able to put up some type of competition for the primary objective, knowing that I still have the flexibility to do that even after suffering pretty hard losses, gives me some kind of confidence in this list, especially, you know, with my 2 most expensive units essentially being misused on the first turn, and if not being obliterated, being held up for the rest of the game because of it. I mean, if I could have just gotten through that Dire Avenger Exarch, then I could have gotten over the Wraith Lords and maybe helped out, and
yeah,
you know,
that would have made a difference.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I said, I thought it was closer than you may have thought.
I never thought it was close. I thought it was. If you thought it was close at all, then you certainly thought it was closer than I did.
Yeah.
Because I that whole game, you know, once that initial charge just backfired, I was like, wow, this whole thing just blew up in my face. I knew that the Shining Spears weren't going to survive the second round, and you know that's just a huge amount of points.
Yeah.
And then I knew it was just a matter of time before the Avatar made it into combat with my bikes if I couldn't kill the Exarch, which I was kind of confident I could do. I was just
it just
wrong.
Wasn't happening.
Yeah, in my confidence.
On a last note, I do enjoy playing table quarters, and I'm sad that we don't see it as it really doesn't. We don't seem to play tables quarters as much in 5th edition.
Yeah, well, because it's not part of the game anymore.
Yeah, but definitely not just the format, the objectives type, but even just deploying table quarters. It really allows my army to project its strength much better. Yeah. And I was actually able to corner your Wave Serpent and your Vipers. When we're playing from long table edges, as it usually happens, that doesn't really happen a lot. You always most armies always seem to have an out room to maneuver.
Yeah.
But this allows me to turn it into a short edge game.
Yeah.
Which definitely plays to the strength of the twin Wraith card.
Yeah. And I definitely think were I to replay this exact mission on my turn effectively my first turn. But it was
Would
turn
you have
two.
done? Would you have done reserves again for your entire army?
Yes, I would have done reserves again for my entire army, but instead of coming on against the strength of your army and trying to cripple it and having that backfire on me gloriously, I would have come on at the weakest point for you, essentially in what would have been my table quarter, and I would have rushed it, moving up as fast as I can to go, because you kind of had a Wraith Guard and a Wraith Lord over here.
I was going to say, what would you have gone over there? Did you see that as weak?
I saw it as weaker than the other edge, but I thought the other edge, if I could have killed the Avatar and wiped out that Dire Avenger unit, that would have crippled that edge, which would have left you either pushing things over there to try and recover to bolster that edge up, or to just push forward this way, and then I could kind of push you this way. But, you know, not playing it the way I did in retrospect, I really should have just focused on not letting you kill me instead of attempting to kill you.
Yeah.
And that way, at the end of the game, you know, I can potentially
maneuver to some advantage.
Yeah, push to take table quarters. And, you know, like I said, with the Warwalkers back there blowing up the Wave Serpent, if I move everything else on over here, you still have to deal with them behind you.
Yeah. And that was the challenge. But one of them survived the game.
Yes.
So it wasn't a total loss.
No, because they were my unit of the match.
Yeah. And I think that's about all we're going to go over it for now.
Till next time.